At my mother-in-law's celebration dinner in Rome, my chair was absent. My husband laughed softly. Whoops, looks like we miscalculated. As everyone chuckled, I quietly stated, appears I'm not considered family, and departed. 30 minutes afterward, they realized I terminated the entire occasion. Venue, catering, all of it. Appears I'm not considered family, I declared, my tone unwavering despite the turmoil erupting within me. The statement lingered in the atmosphere of that upscale Roman establishment as 12 sets of eyes gazed at me with reactions varying from astonishment to thinly veiled gratification. My husband Lucas's soft laugh when he'd remarked, "Whoops, looks like we miscalculated," still reverberated in my mind as I pivoted and stepped away from the table where no seat awaited me. The mortification blazed through my body as I departed the establishment, yet not one tear emerged. Instead, an unsettling tranquility washed over me as I retrieved my phone and launched the event coordination application I constructed my profession upon. I possessed 30 minutes before they comprehend what I was executing, and that provided more than sufficient time. My name is Victoria Morgan Hastings. 5 years prior, I was simply Victoria Morgan, the creator of Prestige Events, Boston's most desired event coordination firm. I'd constructed my enterprise from nothing after financing my own route through commerce school. Every sophisticated charity function, every flawlessly orchestrated business assembly, every high society matrimony in Boston bore my unseen signature. My standing for confidentiality, meticulous attention, and capacity to accomplish the unattainable had established me as the preferred coordinator for the city's upper class. That's how I encountered Lucas Hastings at the philanthropic benefit I orchestrated for Boston Medical Center. Elevated with immaculately styled auburn hair and a grin that created lines near his eyes, Lucas possessed the natural assurance of someone who'd never experienced financial concerns. He displayed charm in that rehearsed manner of men raised in affluence, though something authentic existed in his fascination with my occupation. "So you're the magician responsible for all this?" he'd inquired, motioning to the converted grand hall of the Ritz-Carlton. "My mother has been attempting to determine whom to employ for her charitable gathering next month. I believe I've just discovered her solution." One assignment led to the next, and shortly I was consistently coordinating occasions for the Hastings family. The Hastings clan represented Boston elite, inherited wealth tracing to maritime trade and industrial ventures. They possessed that distinctive variety of prosperity that didn't require flaunting. It manifested in the understated excellence of everything they possessed, the comfort with which they maneuvered their existence. Our courtship commenced 6 months after I began serving his family. Lucas pursued me with identical resolve he applied to his position at the family's financial firm. Warning indicators existed naturally. The manner his mother, Catherine, observed me with scarcely hidden disapproval when Lucas initially presented me as beyond his event coordinator. The offhand remarks about my modest origins. The astonishment in voices when they learned I was romantically involved with a Hastings. "You've accomplished admirably for yourself," Catherine had mentioned during our initial dinner together as a pair, her smile never touching her eyes. "Self-created achievement is remarkably American." I disregarded these indicators because I was developing affection for Lucas. He appeared distinct from his relatives, more progressive, less preoccupied with ancestry and position. When he proposed 11 months following our initial date, I accepted despite the persistent sensation that I was joining a society that would never genuinely embrace me. The matrimony was, predictably, the social occasion of the year. I coordinated much of it personally, incapable of entrusting another coordinator with my own wedding. Catherine possessed viewpoints about everything. The location wasn't conventional enough, the cuisine too daring, the attendee roster missing essential society figures. I yielded where feasible, maintained firmness where it mattered to me. Lucas performed mediator, though I observed he seldom contradicted his mother straightforwardly. Following the wedding, the sabotaging became more deliberate. Despite utilizing my firm for their occasions, the Hastings perpetually challenged my choices, modified arrangements at the final moment, and claimed recognition for my concepts. At family assemblies, my perspectives were requested, then rejected. My experience in event coordination was regarded as an endearing pastime rather than a thriving enterprise. Victoria possesses such refined taste for these matters. Catherine would mention to her companions, condescendingly patting my hand. It's practically like possessing a dedicated party coordinator within the family. Lucas never advocated for me. He'd dismiss it and inform me afterward that's simply his mother's manner, that I shouldn't interpret it as personal. But it was personal, and it intensified as years progressed. The chance to coordinate Catherine's 70th birthday in Rome should have represented my ultimate achievement. A week-long celebration in the ancient city, culminating in a dinner at a prestigious restaurant overlooking the Colosseum. I devoted myself to crafting the flawless occasion, utilizing every connection I possessed in the field. During this coordination, I uncovered the initial fractures in the Hastings exterior. The advance payments for locations were postponed. Service providers contacted inquiring about transactions. When I referenced it to Lucas, he dismissed it, claiming the family accountant was simply exercising caution with international transfers. But I observed the financial statements inadvertently left accessible on his computer. Ventures deteriorated, properties heavily mortgaged, credit lines depleted. The Hastings fortune was diminishing rapidly. Still, I continued coordinating, employing my own firm's credit facility to guarantee deposits when necessary. I convinced myself it was provisional, that Lucas would clarify everything once the birthday celebration concluded. Then arrived the morning of our departure to Rome. Lucas was showering when his device signaled with a notification. I never examined his phone. I'd consistently honored his privacy. But something compelled me to observe that morning. The message preview from Isabella displayed clearly on his screen. "Cannot wait to see you in Rome. Have you informed her yet?" My fingers operated without deliberate thought, accessing the message sequence with Isabella Martinez, Lucas's university girlfriend, the woman his parents had perpetually cherished, the woman they'd anticipated him marrying before he encountered me. The messages extended back months, arrangements established, a future contemplated, and yes, an infant, their infant, expected in 4 months. I captured screenshots, transmitted them to myself, then erased the proof from his phone. I assembled my belongings, maintained a smile, and boarded the aircraft to Rome with my husband and his family. Now positioned outside that establishment in Rome, I executed my decision. I wouldn't confront Lucas before the dinner. I would permit events to transpire, and when they did, I would be prepared. Our aircraft descended at Fiumicino Airport precisely as the golden Italian dusk illuminated Rome's horizon. I'd organized private transportation for the complete Hastings delegation. Lucas's parents, Catherine and Richard, his sister Patricia with her spouse Derek, his brother Andrew with his wife Sophie, and 2 sets of relatives. The fleet of sleek black Mercedes vehicles awaiting at the terminal should have impressed them. Instead, Catherine's initial words stepping from the aircraft were, "I thought I designated the hotel vehicles, Victoria. These appear rather ordinary." I restrained myself as I had innumerable times previously. The hotel experienced a scheduling complication. These are actually from Elite Transport. They service most diplomats in Rome. My clarification reached deaf ears, as she was already conferring something with Richard, their heads inclined together in that secretive manner that perpetually excluded me. The Hotel Excelsior welcomed us with the premium treatment I'd meticulously organized. Champagne flowed in the exclusive lounge while porters whisked away our baggage. I'd invested months obtaining the ideal accommodations, selecting quarters with optimal perspectives, organizing welcome collections filled with Italian delicacies, and designing customized itineraries for each family member. Catherine scarcely glanced at her schedule before placing it aside. "We'll simply improvise," she declared, dismissing weeks of meticulous coordination. "The family comprehends Rome adequately." Our suite was spectacular, a balcony overlooking Piazza di Spagna, fresh blooms in every chamber, and a bottle of Lucas's preferred Barolo aerating on the counter. But the instant we entered, Lucas's phone vibrated, and he stepped onto the balcony, conversing in subdued tones. "Business?" I inquired when he returned. "Just some investment complications," he responded, avoiding my gaze. "Let's prepare for dinner." The welcome dinner I coordinated at an enchanting trattoria in Trastevere became the initial evident indication of my exclusion. Somehow, the seating configuration shifted just before we arrived, and I discovered myself at the distant end of the table, separated from Lucas by his cousin and aunt. Throughout the meal, private jokes traveled across the table. narratives of previous family expeditions to Italy from which I'd been excluded. When I attempted to participate in the discussion about the week's scheduled activities, Patricia interrupted. Oh, Victoria, we've actually decided to do some family antiquing tomorrow instead of the Sistine Chapel tour. Family antiquing? I asked. You understand, Catherine interjected smoothly. Just some tradition we maintain. You'd find it tedious, dear. Why don't you utilize the time to verify the birthday arrangements? That's your specialization, after all. The pattern persisted throughout subsequent days. I'd awakened to discover Lucas already departed, a hastily written note about meeting his father for breakfast. The family would vanish for hours on spontaneous excursions that somehow everyone comprehended except me. Hushed discussions in hotel lobby corners abruptly ceased when I approached. Dinner reservations mysteriously altered to accommodate old acquaintances who happened to be in Rome. Acquaintances who observed me with barely disguised inquisitiveness, as if evaluating how I was managing what was approaching. On the third morning, opportunity manifested when Lucas rushed to meet his brother, leaving his briefcase unlocked. The documents inside verified my worst anxieties. Draft dissolution papers prepared by the Hastings family attorney, dated 2 months earlier. A proposed agreement offering a pittance compared to what I was entitled to, and most condemning, a script, an actual script, outlining how Lucas would declare our impending divorce at his mother's birthday dinner, presenting it as a mutual choice reached amicably. My hands trembled as I photographed each page with my phone. There it existed in black and white, the perfect stage-managed departure of the unsuitable wife, scheduled for maximum public impact yet minimum social embarrassment for the Hastings family. Catherine's birthday wasn't simply a celebration. It was to be my burial as a Hastings. Instead of confronting Lucas, I channeled my anger into systematic documentation. Each day I fabricated excuses to return to our suite alone, searching for additional proof. I discovered bank statements displaying massive transfers to offshore holdings, email printouts discussing the liquidation of holdings before the situation becomes public, a handwritten notation from Catherine to Lucas. Once this unpleasantness with Victoria is resolved, Isabella will be welcomed back appropriately. My professional facade remained securely positioned as I continued supervising the birthday preparations. I verified floral arrangements, consulted with the establishment manager, authorized the custom menu presentations, all while accumulating digital evidence of the Hastings financial house of cards. When anyone inquired why I seemed preoccupied, I attributed last-minute event particulars. In reality, I was constructing my arsenal. The morning of Catherine's birthday emerged bright and clear. I woke early, slipping from bed without disturbing Lucas. The day's itinerary was intensive: a private morning tour of the Galleria Borghese, luncheon at a vineyard beyond the city, then returning to the hotel to prepare for the evening's grand dinner. As the event coordinator, I needed to arrive at the establishment early to ensure everything was flawless. I was in the hotel's business facility printing final verifications when I detected Catherine's voice from the adjacent concierge station. The dividing partition was thin, and her authoritative tone carried distinctly. There will be 12 seats, not 13, she instructed someone via telephone. I don't care what the original booking states. The seating diagram I transmitted is definitive. Pause. No, that won't be problematic. The arrangement has been discussed with my son. His wife will not be remaining for the dinner. A family matter, you understand. No need for inquiries when she departs. My blood turned frigid as the fragments connected. The absent seat wasn't an oversight or final moment modification. It was the centerpiece of their strategy, a public mortification designed to make my departure appear like my decision rather than their orchestration. I closed my computer, collected my documents, and proceeded to the elevator with measured steps. Inside, I retrieved my phone and commenced making a new series of arrangements. If the Hastings family desired a memorable birthday dinner, I would guarantee it was unforgettable, just not in the manner they had planned. I arrived at Ristorante Aroma an hour before the other attendees, as any competent event coordinator would. The rooftop location offered a spectacular panoramic perspective of the Colosseum bathed in the amber radiance of sunset. I personally examined every detail, from the hand-lettered place designations to the configuration of Catherine's preferred white peonies and garden roses. The champagne was chilling, the 7-course sampling menu verified, and the 3-tiered birthday confection was a masterpiece of Italian craftsmanship. "Is everything to your satisfaction, Signora Hastings?" inquired Giuseppe, the maitre d'. "Flawless," I responded, knowing it would be the final occasion I would coordinate for the Hastings family. I returned to the hotel to change into the midnight blue Givenchy gown I'd acquired specifically for tonight. As I applied cosmetics with steady hands, I studied my reflection. 5 years of attempting to conform to a society that was determined to reject me had extracted its toll, but not in the manner the Hastings family might have anticipated. Instead of destroying me, they had fortified my determination. The Hastings family had organized to assemble in the hotel lobby before departing collectively for the establishment. I arrived precisely punctually to find them all waiting. Catherine resplendent in crimson Dior, her diamond choker capturing the illumination. Lucas's eyes expanded slightly when he observed me, perhaps recalling what had attracted him to me initially, or perhaps calculating how shortly he could be liberated from me. "Victoria, darling, you look exquisite," Catherine said, air-kissing near my cheeks. "We're just awaiting the vehicles." The journey to the establishment was brief, filled with artificial conversation about the day's activities from which I'd been excluded. As we ascended in the elevator to the rooftop, Lucas positioned his hand at the small of my back, a gesture that once felt intimate, but now seemed performative for the benefit of the elevator attendant. The doors opened to reveal the stunning terrace I had designed, transformed into an elegant dining space beneath the stars. The Colosseum stood illuminated against the night sky, a testament to both grandeur and the inevitable collapse of empires. How appropriate. Catherine entered first, greeted with enthusiastic applause from waiting family members. One by one, everyone moved toward the large circular table I had designated, a table that should have accommodated 13. I followed behind Lucas, who moved purposefully toward his assigned seat beside his mother. I approached searching for the location where my place designation should have been, only to find nothing. No chair, no place arrangement, no acknowledgement that I existed. For a moment I stood motionless, the perfect tableau of confusion. Around me discussions continued as everyone settled into their seats, studiously avoiding my gaze. The waitstaff, who had verified the seating with me just hours earlier, appeared uncomfortable but remained silent. "Is something incorrect?" Catherine asked innocently, her voice carrying just enough to draw everyone's attention. "There seems to be an error," I said, my voice calmer than I felt. "My place setting is absent." The meticulously choreographed scene unfolded exactly as they had planned. Furrowed brows, exchanged glances, Lucas half rising from his chair, a performance of concern that never reached his eyes. "That's peculiar," Patricia said, examining the table. "Did someone calculate incorrectly?" Richard cleared his throat. Perhaps there was a miscommunication with the establishment staff. Then came Lucas's line, delivered with a practiced casualness that made my skin crawl. He actually chuckled, and said, "Whoops, looks like we miscalculated." The family laughed, not uproariously, that would be too obvious, but with the gentle amusement of people sharing an inside joke. In that moment, I saw it all with perfect clarity, the calculated humiliation, the public setting chosen to prevent a scene, the groundwork for narratives they would tell afterward about poor Victoria, who couldn't handle the pressure of Hastings' family life. My gaze moved slowly around the table, taking in each face. Catherine, triumphant behind her birthday smile. Richard, uncomfortable but complicit. Patricia and Andrew, enjoying the spectacle. Their spouses, aware enough of the cruelty to look slightly ashamed but not enough to object. And Lucas, my husband, the man who had once promised to stand by me against the world, watching me with detached curiosity, like a scientist observing an experiment. I could have created a scene. I could have demanded a chair, exposed their plan in front of the waitstaff, made the kind of public display that would live in family lore for generations. That's what they expected, what they had prepared for. Catherine would comfort Lucas over his unstable wife, and the divorce narrative would write itself. Instead, I straightened my shoulders, lifted my chin, and delivered the line that would begin my reclamation of power. "Appears I'm not considered family." 4 words, simple, devastating in their truth. The smiles faltered. Lucas's expression shifted from smugness to uncertainty. I had departed from their script. I'll see myself out, I added, turning away with the dignity that had been my armor throughout my marriage. Victoria, don't be theatrical, Lucas called after me. Another line from their playbook. We can resolve this. I didn't respond. I walked through the establishment, nodding politely to the staff who had witnessed my humiliation. In the elevator, I finally allowed myself a deep breath. Then another. By the time I reached the street, my hands had stopped shaking. A small cafe across from the establishment offered the perfect vantage point. I ordered an espresso and retrieved my phone. This was the moment I'd prepared for. The 30 minutes of freedom while the Hastings family congratulated themselves on their successful ejection of the unsuitable wife. First, I transmitted a prepared email to Giuseppe, the establishment manager, with instructions that had been agreed upon as a surprise contingency, a common practice in high-level event coordination. Attached was proof of my authority as the account holder and event coordinator, along with confirmation of immediate payment reversal. Next came the calls to the vineyard scheduled for tomorrow's luncheon, the private Vatican guide for the following day, the yacht captain for the Amalfi Coast excursion, the villa in Tuscany for the final weekend. One by one, I canceled everything, transferring the deposits I'd made with my own firm's credit facility back to my business account. With each cancellation, I felt lighter. The emails from Lucas began arriving, first annoyed, then confused, then increasingly desperate as my tactics became clear. I ignored them all. 28 minutes after I had walked out of the establishment, I finished my espresso and paid the bill. It was time for the final act. I stood, smoothed my Givenchy gown, and walked back across the street to witness the moment when Catherine Hastings's perfect birthday celebration crumbled around her. I entered Ristorante Aroma through the service entrance, a route I had familiarized myself with during my earlier inspection. Giuseppe met me with a concerned expression. Signora Hastings, are you certain about this? It is most irregular. I'm absolutely certain, Giuseppe, and I appreciate your discretion. I handed him a sealed envelope. This contains proof of the payment reversals and the cancellation of my firm's guarantee for tonight's expenses. As we discussed, the Hastings family will need to provide a new method of payment to continue their dinner. Giuseppe nodded solemnly. In the events industry, relationships were everything. I had worked with Giuseppe on 3 previous occasions for other Boston clients visiting Rome. He owed me favors, and while he might find my request peculiar, professional courtesy dictated he comply. When should I inform them? He asked. I'll text you in 5 minutes. I'd like to observe from somewhere discreet. He guided me to a small alcove near the kitchen entrance with a perfect view of the Hastings table. They were in the middle of toasting Catherine, champagne flutes raised high, faces glowing with self-satisfaction. The first course had just been served, the imported Miyagi oysters that Catherine had specifically requested. My phone vibrated, a new message from Lucas. Victoria, where are you? Stop being childish and return. Then another. Mother is upset. You're embarrassing yourself. I didn't respond. Instead, I texted Giuseppe. You may proceed. From my hidden vantage point, I watched as Giuseppe approached the table with 2 other staff members. He leaned down to speak quietly to Richard, who was seated at the head of the table opposite Catherine. The family continued eating initially, paying little attention to the interruption. Richard's expression changed first, from polite interest to confusion, then alarm. He pulled out his wallet, speaking more animatedly to Giuseppe. The manager shook his head apologetically, showing Richard something on a tablet. By now, the entire table had noticed the disruption. Catherine set down her fork, her regal posture betraying the first hints of tension. Lucas was staring at his phone, presumably reading my latest text explaining exactly what I had done. All deposits have been returned to my firm's account, all arrangements for the week canceled. Your family's financial complications are about to become very public. Enjoy your oysters. The scene unfolded like a perfectly choreographed ballet of chaos. Richard stood, his face flushed with anger or embarrassment. Perhaps both. Catherine's hand flew to her diamond choker, clutching it as if for support. Patricia was frantically whispering to her husband. Andrew pulled out his phone, presumably trying to verify what was happening. And Lucas. Lucas sat frozen, his face drained of color. Unlike the others, he understood the full implications. He knew what I had discovered about their finances. He knew what would happen if his mother's society friends learned that the Hastings family could no longer cover a dinner bill, let alone maintain their lavish lifestyle. My phone rang. Lucas calling now, not texting. I declined the call and watched as he stood abruptly from the table, nearly knocking over his chair as he stepped away to try again. This time I answered. "Victoria," he hissed, his voice a mixture of fury and panic. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" "Appears I'm not considered family," I repeated calmly. "So I'm not responsible for family celebrations. You need to resolve this immediately. Do you have any idea how humiliating this is for my mother? For all of us?" "I have exactly the idea, Lucas. That was the point. Where are you?" His voice changed, desperation creeping in. "We need to talk. I can explain about Isabella, about everything." "I'm sure you can. The problem is, I've seen the financial statements, Lucas. I've seen the emails. I know the Hastings empire is crumbling, and I know you've been hiding assets offshore before filing for divorce." His sharp intake of breath confirmed what I already knew. He never expected me to discover these things. He had underestimated me, just as his family had from the beginning. "Those were private." Yes, they were. Just like the text messages from Isabella about the infant. Just like the script for announcing our divorce at your mother's birthday dinner. Just like the seating arrangement deliberately excluding me. Silence on the line. In the establishment, I could see the manager now speaking to the entire table. Several other diners were watching with undisguised interest. The Hastings humiliation was becoming a public spectacle, exactly what they had planned for me. "Victoria, please." Lucas's voice had lost all its aristocratic confidence. "You don't understand what this will do to us." "I understand perfectly. That's why I did it. We can work this out. Come back to the hotel. I'll meet you there in 20 minutes. "No, Lucas. I don't think we can work this out." I ended the call and stepped out from my hiding place. It was time for my final appearance as a Hastings. As I approached the table, 12 pairs of eyes turned to me, some angry, some fearful, all disbelieving. Catherine spoke first, her voice shaking with fury. "How dare you ruin my birthday?" I smiled, feeling a strange sense of calm. "I learned from the best, Catherine. After all, isn't this exactly what you planned for me? A public humiliation, an orchestrated exit. The only difference is, I changed the ending." Richard stood. "This is outrageous. You had no right—" "I had every right," I interrupted. "Every contract, every reservation, every arrangement was in my name or my firm's name. I simply adjusted the plans." "You'll regret this," Patricia spat. "When Lucas divorces you, you'll get nothing." "That's where you're wrong," I replied, looking directly at Lucas. "I have copies of everything, the offshore accounts, the hidden assets, the fraudulent business dealings. I'm sure the IRS will find it all fascinating reading." Their faces turned ghostly white as the implications sank in. In that moment, I felt no triumph, no vindication, only a profound sense of liberation. As I turned and walked away from the Hastings family for the last time, I left behind a family in crisis, their carefully constructed facade crumbling in real time. I departed Italy the following morning, upgrading myself to first class on a direct flight to Boston using points I'd accumulated coordinating the Hastings' previous vacations. The irony wasn't lost on me. Behind me, I left a family in crisis. Through the hotel concierge, I learned that the Hastings family had paid for their dinner with Catherine's vintage Cartier bracelet as collateral until a wire transfer could be arranged. By morning, word had spread through Rome's high-end hospitality network that the illustrious American family was having payment difficulties. The remaining vendors I hadn't personally canceled began requesting upfront payments rather than promises. My phone was flooded with messages, some threatening, others pleading. I read them during my layover in London, sipping Earl Grey tea in the British Airways lounge. "Richard, this is actionable. Our attorneys will be in touch." "Patricia, you've made the biggest mistake of your life." "Andrew, did you really think you could humiliate our family without consequences?" Catherine's message was the most revealing. "I always knew you were common. This vindictive display only proves what I've said from the beginning." But it was the succession of messages from Lucas that told the real story of a family in freefall. First, "You have no idea what you've done. My father had a minor cardiac episode. Is that what you wanted? Then, the Wentworths and Cabots saw everything. Do you know what this means for our standing? Later. The hotel is demanding payment for the entire week up front. They say all guarantees have been canceled. And finally, please, Victoria, I need to talk to you. It's about more than us now. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I forwarded the financial documents I'd gathered to my attorney with instructions to hold them securely until needed. If the Hastings family pursued litigation, I would be prepared. When I arrived home to our Beacon Hill townhouse, I hired a moving company to pack my personal belongings. I took only what was unquestionably mine: clothes, jewelry I'd purchased myself, my collection of first edition books, and the artwork I'd acquired before our marriage. Everything else, including the wedding gifts and items purchased jointly, I left behind. I wanted nothing that could tie me to the Hastings web of deceit. 2 days later, the Boston Herald published a small item in their business section: Investment firm faces inquiry. The article mentioned financial irregularities and questions from investors. While it didn't make front-page news, it was enough to send ripples through Boston's social circles. Lucas appeared at my new apartment unannounced 1 week after I returned from Rome. He looked haggard, the polished veneer of privilege replaced by genuine desperation. "You need to come home," he said when I opened the door. "This has gone far enough." "This isn't a negotiation tactic, Lucas. This is divorce." He stepped inside without invitation, running his hands through his disheveled hair. "The SEC is investigating father's accounts. 2 board members have resigned. Mother had to cancel her charity benefit because 3 major donors pulled out." "That sounds like a Hastings family problem," I replied. "Not mine." "It's your problem if I go down with the ship," he countered. "We're still married. My debts are your debts." I allowed myself a small smile. "Not when I have proof that you deliberately excluded me from financial decisions and hid assets with the intent to defraud me in divorce proceedings. My attorney assures me that's enough to protect me." His facade cracked completely then. Lucas sank onto my sofa, head in his hands. "I never wanted it to be like this." "What did you want, Lucas? To marry me for my event planning skills? To use me to manage your social calendar while you reconnected with Isabella? To discard me when I was no longer useful?" "It wasn't like that in the beginning," he said quietly. "I did love you, but not enough to stand up to your family, not enough to be honest about your affair." I sat across from him, feeling strangely calm. "When is the infant due?" His head snapped up. "How did you—" "4 months according to the text I saw. Congratulations." A heavy silence fell between us. Outside, rain began to tap against the windows of my new apartment. Smaller than our townhouse, but mine alone paid for with the proceeds from a business I'd built without Hastings money or connections. "I'll give you whatever you want," Lucas finally said. "Just hand over those documents and sign an NDA. Name your price." That was the moment I realized the Hastings family still didn't understand me at all. After 5 years, they still saw me as someone who could be bought, someone motivated by the same material concerns that drove their existence. "I don't want your money, Lucas. I want my freedom. I want the truth acknowledged." I stood up, indicating our conversation was ending. "The documents stay with my attorney unless you try to drag me down with you. The divorce terms are simple. I walk away with what's mine, you with what's yours." "And Isabella? The baby?" His voice was barely audible. "That's between you and your conscience. I hope you'll be a better husband to her than you were to me." After he left, I stood by the window watching the rain intensify. The scandal unfolded gradually over the following weeks. The Boston Herald ran a more extensive piece on the Hastings investment firm's financial irregularities. Longtime clients quietly withdrew their portfolios. Catherine's position on 3 prestigious charity boards became emeritus rather than active. Isabella's pregnancy became public knowledge when she was spotted at her obstetrician's office wearing an engagement ring. The timeline made it clear that their relationship had resumed long before our marriage ended. In Boston's high society, infidelity might be tolerated if discreet, but such blatant misconduct violated the unspoken code. My business thrived, despite or perhaps because of the scandal. Clients who had once looked down on me now appreciated my discretion and integrity. The story that circulated wasn't about a woman scorned, but about a professional who refused to be used and discarded. 6 months later, I received an invitation that made me laugh out loud when I opened it. A request to bid on coordinating Catherine Hastings' next charity event. Apparently, desperation had overcome pride. I declined politely, citing a full schedule. The divorce was finalized without drama. The Hastings family, focused on salvaging their reputation and finances, agreed to my terms without argument. Lucas and Isabella married quietly. Their daughter was born 2 weeks later. I sent no gift. On the 1-year anniversary of that night in Rome, I found myself coordinating another event in Italy, a celebrity wedding on the Amalfi Coast. As I stood on a terrace overlooking the Mediterranean, phone in hand, and vendors at my command, I realized something unexpected. I was happy, not despite the collapse of my marriage, but because of it. The Hastings family had tried to make me feel small, to reduce me to an accessory in their grand narrative. Instead, they had inadvertently freed me to reclaim my story. In losing what I thought I wanted, I had found what I actually needed. Not acceptance from a family determined to reject me, but the courage to reject a life built on appearances. I raised my glass to the setting sun, toasting the missing chair that had shown me exactly where I belonged.